Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to the Elevate Your Soul podcast. Today, I interview Adam Cox, a serial entrepreneur, broadcaster, hypnotherapist, and speaker. And today, we discuss how to create more money by clearing your money blocks or beliefs and misconceptions that you have around wanting money, making money, and having money. Listen to this episode to gain more clarity and ideas around how to make more money, how to start your own business, and the importance of becoming aware and clearing any money blocks you have in your subconscious. You can find Adam's work on his website at adamcox.co.uk, or you can listen to his own podcasts. One of them is called Modern Mindset, and the other one is called The Hypnotist. A very interesting podcast, that one. Those links are in the show notes for you to find. And if you enjoy this podcast episode, please share it with your friends and anyone who you think could benefit from this episode. Hello, Adam. Welcome to the Elevate Your Soul podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in. First question I have for you is, what elevates your soul?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. What elevates my soul? Definitely exercise, definitely fresh air. And I think doing something deliberately outside my comfort zone, that makes me feel alive. If I know I've not done that thing before, that just kind of lights me up a bit. So yeah, those.
Beautiful, beautiful. Are you in your office right now or are you home?
Yeah, this is my office, which is like 2 minutes from my home. So yeah, it's
Perfect. Are you in downtown London or are you on the outside?
Yeah, about 20 minutes north of London. So it's a county that borders. So it's called Hertfordshire, and it's kind of quite green and quite nice. But I can be in central London in like 15, 20 minutes.
Nice. Wonderful. Sorry, I'm just looking at my first question for you. Can you tell me and the listeners what your story is around money and what challenges you've overcome around money yourself?
Yeah, I think for me as a child, I was quite entrepreneurial. I think it came from growing up in a family where there wasn't much money. It wasn't that my parents were poor. It was just that my dad made a choice when I was about, I think 11 or 12 years old, to go back to university. So he lost his income. And then my mum was doing kind of like factory work. So it meant that in the household, we had very little money. And, I think it was just the association of what a lack of money meant to me. It meant that it was linked to emotions like shame and embarrassment. I remember I was so embarrassed on one birthday where I got a pair of trainers, and these trainers were, they were not branded, and I remember trying to draw a brand on the trainers because I was embarrassed at the trainer, and of course I got absolutely ridiculed at school. So for me, having a lack of money was associated to not being worthy, not being respected, lots of undesirable. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, being a bit of kind of rejected at some level. So for me, I was always kind of interested in making money, but as a child, you don't really have that much resources. So I would do things like go to here we call them car boot sales. So kind of like where people will sell their kind of secondhand goods, and I would go there and I would buy things, haggle, and then sell them for a bit more.
Nice.
But it just kind of sparked off this kind of entrepreneurial.
How old were you when you started doing that?
Yeah, probably about 12, 13 years old. And then I got a couple of paper rounds, so delivering papers door to door. Yeah. And I was just kind of interested in all these different ways of making money.
Yeah. Did you have an idea at that young age what you wanted to do with that money? Or at that point, was it just about wanting to collect it?
Yeah, it was an interesting thing. So I remember distinctly, particularly the paper round, because the owner of the newsagent, quite a clever guy, he would kind of give a benefit to the paper boys that they could choose whatever they would want in the shop with no other customers there, spending the money that they had just earned delivering papers in the cold. And he would offer that to me. It's like, oh, you can go in there and have whatever you want. It's like, well, I could do that anyway, but I don't want to spend the money I've worked hard for, on sweets and things like
Right.
this. So I
Right.
would save it. And the kind of things that I was buying back then, I always had a plan of something a little bit bigger. So I would
Yeah.
think of a computer to buy or a printer or whatever it might be. So for
Yeah.
me, even back then, I had this idea of, I don't want to waste the money. If I've worked this hard to get it, I want to kind of put it to some kind of good use.
That was me as well. Yeah. I was like crazy about saving money. But when I look back now, I'm like, oh, it might have been like scarcity thinking as well.
Right.
And I don't know, I don't think I fully adopted it from my parents. I think, I don't know, it was just in my DNA cells or whatever. And I would like, whenever I got allowance or whatever, I'd get money for Christmas, I would like hide it so that like no one in my family knew where it was. And I just wanted to stash it. And I also had like this idea in my head, like, oh, one day I'm going to, yeah, like buy a computer or like something big, or even more so, like I'm going to buy a big, beautiful home one day, like when I'm in my 20s or something, or just like
Mm.
use it to travel and have like amazing experiences with. But yeah, I never wanted to like, and my older sister would always spend it straight away. She'd like buy candy and whatever, like little knickknacks. And I was like, no, like I always wanted to save my money. It's interesting how
Yeah,
we do that as kids.
it is. And I think, some people are just wired that way where,
Mhm.
what they associate with money is gratification at some level. It gives them instant pleasure,
Yeah.
but only, it gives them nothing as money. But I think other people are wired a bit differently where they can appreciate that if they can delay that gratification, then they can do something much more impressive with it than if they spend it straight away and they've got nothing left. And I think scarcity is one of the key things that makes people fearful as humans, as a
Yeah.
as a species. We're kind of hardwired for survival, not happiness. So anything that could affect the quality of our life in a very negative way, we can be very fearful of that. And I think that applies to money. It also applies to food.
Yeah.
And now with the lockdown, you're seeing lots of people hoard
Yeah.
food. Well, that's not something we're used to seeing, but it's something we're
Toilet
seeing because
paper. That's not something we're used to seeing either.
that's a bit more strange. That's people, yeah, prioritizing
No.
a clean ass over hunger. But it's that scarcity mentality, and people don't really like that.
Did you feel that you had a scarcity mentality around money yourself? And if so, how did you overcome that? And has that changed the amount of income you're earning or money you're manifesting in your own life?
Yeah, I mean, I was riddled with all kinds of anxieties. I'd saved money as a child, but then as a teenager, I'd kind of my values changed and I kind of wasted it a bit. And then at the age of um, 20, well, how old was I? About 21. I had my first proper job, and I've only ever had two proper jobs. I was working at a radio station, and I just really didn't enjoy it.
Mm.
And then I worked in a different company, a PR company, and the boss was just like the biggest dick ever. And I just kind of
Which was
very
a
quickly,
blessing for you in your life, right? Because if he wasn't, like you might have
yeah, well, I'm grateful for it now.
forever.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
he was kind of a blessing for me, but back then he was just the most vile creature ever. And I kind of thought, well, he would abuse that power, and there is a power dynamic in a kind of employer-employee relationship.
Yeah.
It's just most employers don't abuse that. They treat it like a win-win transaction that actually both parties benefit if it's done right. He didn't. He had a very fragile ego. I think he was very insecure. So the fact that he was the boss, he would then kind of elevate his own significance. And I just thought, this guy is an absolute dick. So I kind of looked at that time when I had literally no money whatsoever. I was doing silly things to kind of avoid paying train fares so I could kind of save a bit more. But I kind of decided back then that I would save the money to have my own business, because I thought the problem of being an employee is that you're at the whim of someone else's decisions, and that felt more insecure to me.
For you.
People talk about a job as kind of being a safe, secure job. there are no jobs that are safe, secure, and we're these people that had safe, secure jobs right now, they might have been fired very quickly because variables have changed, but it's not their choice to make. They're at the victim end of those decisions. So
Nothing's
for
really
me,
safe and secure though in life anyway. Like I feel like a lot of people are saying like, oh, like entrepreneur, it's like this new thing now where people are like, oh, like learn to create your own business and being an entrepreneur is amazing and having like a normal job and working for someone else sucks. But it's like being an entrepreneur and running your own business comes with so much more like pressure and stress because everything is up to you. Whereas if you have a job, you're like, oh, well, it's not really my company and it doesn't really matter if the company loses money. Like, like nothing's really secure. Relationships, like nothing's 100% secure in life anyway. Even your home, if you own a house, that can burn down. So
true.
yeah, I just want to like highlight nothing's really that secure and safe. And for you personally, you've just had a desire to work for yourself and be an entrepreneur. Not everyone has that, but it's good that you found that within yourself and you respected that and you made an
Yeah,
effort
I
to do
did.
that.
Yeah, and it forced me because I kind of thought to do two key things. One is that while I was working for an employer, I treated myself like I was self-employed anyway. That I was kind of like a consultant working, as a self-employed person, but contracted by them. So it gave me that kind of self-employed mentality anyway. But also, I was using the income that I was earning that was my seed capital to launch my own business. And then at the age of 23, I did launch my own business, but I kept my overheads very low, and that enabled me to reduce the risk.
Hmm.
And in the years that followed, the business kind of grew, and then the money I made from the business, I bought properties, and
Right.
then kind of invested in the stock market as well. So, but it all
How many
came
years
from.
have you been doing that business now for?
Yeah, so I was 23, so I'm 41 now, so it's about 18
Oh, you
18
look
years.
younger. You look way younger. Okay. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
18 years.
I'll
One.
take that as a compliment. That's
Yeah, yeah. Take it as what you want. Okay, 18 years. Yeah. And you've never gone back to working for someone else?
No, I mean, I'm kind of, it's weird. I've got multiple businesses.
And can you tell
I'm
us what your businesses are?
Yeah, so I run a PR agency. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. I'm a radio presenter. Like you, I have a podcast,
Yep.
and I have a portfolio of properties. So I kind of manage those properties, and they're the main ones. But I would say as a source of income, I would say PR company, properties, and clinical hypnotherapy. They're my main sources of
You
income.
do hypnotherapy for people who want to earn more money or around their finances, or what do you usually hypnotise them? Like what
Yeah, so
they come to you
I
for?
have three main brands when it comes to hypnosis. So Phobia Guru, so I'm kind of known as someone that can get rid of phobias very quickly. I have a brand for weight loss called Hypno Slimming, and I also have a brand for addictions called Addiction Experts.
Ooh,
What I do for people on money is I do workshops every now and then called Hypnotic Wealth, where it's literally going through. I start off by asking a metaphorical question. I said, right, who here has seen a time travel movie? And like everyone's hand goes up because the genre is quite a fun genre.
yeah.
Oh, okay, what's your favorite time travel movie? And you get everything from Back to the Future to Hot Tub Time Machine. And I said, right, if you had a time machine like that and you could go back 10 years with the knowledge you have now, what would you do to come back and guarantee that you're a millionaire or multimillionaire
Right.
now? And people have very different strategies, but the strategy is never to go back 10 years in the past and get a job. That is never anyone's strategy. The strategy is to take the knowledge and say, right, I'd buy stock in Apple or Amazon. I'd invest in Bitcoin, whatever it might be. I would do certain things. And then what we explore is why that would be a different strategy to what they're actually living now. And it comes down to one word, and that word is risk.
Risk. Yeah. I
With
was
a time
thinking,
machine, you have access to absolute clarity of certainty, so you know what the outcome is.
yeah.
So of course you're guaranteed to be a multimillionaire, because it's like Biff in Back to the Future 2 when he's got all the sports results. He knows what's going to win, so there's no risk.
Yeah.
Gambling isn't gambling if you know the answer.
Right.
But then we kind of explore, well, how is it that some people are wired differently and have different beliefs about risk?
Hmm.
um, still take the very actions that you would do with a time machine, even though they don't have a time machine. And it just kind of explores the different kind of money
Interesting.
blocks that people have that get in the way of people being truly wealthy, and what that gives them.
Yeah, that was my next question. What are some common money blocks that you hear when you work with people that gets in their way of earning the amount of money that they want to earn?
Yeah. The first one really is that it's risky, that they
Okay.
could lose it.
Yeah.
And it comes back to that scarcity mentality that we were talking about. You know, if people have worked so hard, um, then the idea that they could lose it doesn't compute. It kind of goes against everything that they've kind of done. So it's kind of so the kind of things that tend to make someone wealthy are investing or buying appreciating assets. So that might be stocks and shares in the company, or it might be property, or just assets that tend to appreciate in value.
Yeah.
Um, and you see, you know, and when there's a room of people, I can kind of ask them and said, well, what stops you from doing that? Oh, but what if the company fails? What if
Mhm.
property prices go down?
Yeah. What if the
What if?
coronavirus hits and there's a pandemic?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that hasn't come up. That hasn't come up in the talk so far. But
It's been
but it's
12
an
years.
interesting.
It's been fine for 12 years, but now, yeah.
That's it. So, but again, for those people that are wired in a risk averse way, this will be evidence to them that, yeah, just as well I didn't buy those stocks and shares, or just as well I didn't invest in whatever it might be, because who knows what could happen in the world. And these are belief systems. They're belief systems about risk and consequences. But
Yeah.
equally, some people have beliefs about identity,
Yeah.
and particularly people that are kind of wired in a very kind of spiritual way. They for some people there is a binary, um, kind of element that in order to be spiritual and to be one with nature or whatever it might be, means that they don't want to be that corporate or business kind of person
Yeah.
that is kind of chasing money,
Yeah.
and it's kind of an alignment of values. And the reality is, it's more like two different circles. You've got a circle of people that are wired very well, well to kind of chase money and do well in business, and you've got these spiritual people, but you have got this very small gray area where they overlap in the middle, where
Totally.
you can do both.
Yeah.
And for some people, wealth isn't about significance and showing off, or those kind of things. It gives them in a position where they're free to make their own choices,
Yeah.
and to contribute more to other people. So in the right way,
Mhm.
wealth can actually enhance what they're all about. But if
Totally.
they don't believe that, and it doesn't align with their values, and the caricature of someone that's wealthy isn't them,
Yeah.
that can really be a block.
Yeah. And the hard part is knowing what blocks you have that are in your subconscious mind that you're totally not aware about. So for a lot of people, and like me included, I'm like, oh, well, I don't think money is evil. I know I want money, and money to me means freedom and joy and being able to help other people. And I still find that there's some kind of block, and I know that it must be in my energy, in my subconscious mind. I know I've like got a lot of it in my DNA from my family history. So like, how do you work? Do you work with people with their like subconscious thoughts and with your hypnotherapy? Or
Totally. Yeah.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
and,
And do
and,
you
and the
have a
first
lot of
thing.
people who are unaware of their
Oh,
money?
massively. Most people are unaware. Most
Okay.
people, it's kind of like programming that rarely goes to the surface, but it's certainly shaping their decisions. It's shaping their life choices, but they've got no idea it's even, kind of in there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I do, on the hypnosis side, is that I've got a hypnosis where they get to go in this metaphorical time machine and see different futures. They get to see a future of what comfort looks like for them, but they
Mhm.
also get to see a future of what absolute scarcity and poverty looks like for them,
Right.
and linking that to misery. Then they get to see what, this kind of element of luxury would look like for them. Now that's different for different people.
Yeah.
For some people it's fast cars, for other people it's big houses, for other people it might be flying around the country getting to travel.
Yeah.
But then the different future that is really crucial and really aligns with people that are more kind of spiritual is, a future of generosity, because you can only be generous if you've got something to give, and that
Well, it doesn't always
for
have to be money. It's to me, it's like you're giving energy, and whether that's your time, your knowledge, or your money, it's kind of the same
Oh,
thing,
totally.
like
I,
money.
I couldn't agree
Yeah.
more.
I
But
just
but
like for people who are listening and they're like, oh my God, like it doesn't have to be money. I just want to like, for those people,
oh,
I want
totally.
to
No, it doesn't have to be money, and
yeah.
sometimes it is time. But equally, if you are in a poverty situation where you have to work, let's say, 12-hour days, and then you've got children that you're looking after, um, then that can impede your ability to give time or energy or anything else to anyone else.
Yeah.
Because when you're in that kind of trap of not having enough for the basics,
Yeah.
that's going to distort your priorities and how you spend your time. And people genuinely do get trapped in those kind of, they literally call it the poverty trap.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with you. It's not just about giving money, but sometimes poverty can mean that you can't do the kind of things that you would like to do. So that
Mhm.
future of generosity is a blueprint, their own version of what generosity means.
Yeah.
Could be time for you, could be money for other people, could be something else for someone else. But they get to see these futures and then compare and contrast. Is there anything that doesn't sit right with that future? Are there anything that they're worried about? So when they've got it all, is anything coming up that's kind of getting in the way? So if someone's, sees that luxury future,
Uh-huh.
they see the big houses, they see the amazing cars, but then they're like, they feel nervous that they're going to have it taken away from them. That's
Right.
going to be their money block. If
Right.
we go to the future of generosity, and they're getting backlash or hate from other people
Hmm.
because of jealousy or whatever it might be, then that might be the money block for them. But
Right.
you can only really do that by almost kind of, it's called future pacing or pseudo orientation in time, going to that future
Yeah.
that is so-called desirable, and then seeing, is it as desirable as you think it might be? Because if there's anything that would make that future undesirable, that's a block. That's a subconscious block that's getting in the way, that will, at some levels, you can self-sabotage that.
Yeah. And what if they have this imagination of themselves in the future and it is as desirable as they imagine, but there's still some sort of block in the way? How do you
Yeah. Well,
work with
you've got different kind of blocks. Sometimes you've got the block in terms of the process rather than the destination. So sometimes,
that? Hmm.
the destination, it's like if you said, to someone, what do you really want? And they're like, oh, I want to be famous. And they really thought about what fame means to them. And it's kind of an invasion of privacy and that kind of stuff. That
Yeah.
might be a future block that is in the moment that they hadn't even thought about.
Yeah.
But you've also got the process block.
Yeah.
And it might be that in order to become wealthy, there's certain things that you have to do, which again might relate to risk. So, for example, if
More
someone's
time
wired for,
in order to
yeah,
become wealthy. I need to waste my life away.
yeah,
Yeah.
but there's different kind of values as well. So if you value, let's say, nature, for example, and tranquility and kind of peace,
Yeah.
and you associate business with big decisions, responsibility,
Yes.
pressure, and stress,
Yeah.
well, there's a block right there,
Love
and the thing is, it's quite possible that there is a business that doesn't rely
it. Uh-huh.
on being in an office or, making stressful decisions on those kind of things. But if you associate making money in business with that thing which is highly undesirable for the individual, that will be a block. And there's so many different blocks, but the
Mm,
the the trick is to elicit what's the stumbling blocks for that individual. And a lot of the time it is fears, a lot of the time it is belief systems, but sometimes it's a lack of knowledge.
yeah.
I've had people tell me pensions are risky. Well, pensions aren't a single thing. Pensions are, just a financial tool
Yeah.
to invest as a strategy for older age.
Right.
So a collective belief system that
Uh-huh.
those things are risky, well, of course you're not going to put in a pension, but that might mean that you have to work in your 80s because you've got no income at that point.
Yeah.
So there's different kind of things going on, and a lot of it is to elicit what kind of future they want. Not everyone wants to be billionaires or millionaires. Some people, they just want a comfortable life where they get to not have to work, but they can choose to work. That's a good future for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And my job isn't to force my values on anyone else, but kind of as a good therapist, help them to figure out what they want, what's
Yeah.
getting in the way of what they want, and then make the breakthroughs required to get there.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What sort of challenges yourself have you faced through with your money blocks and things?
I think the first issue that I had, being um, a massive introvert, very kind of questioned, when I started employing people,
You totally
um,
strike me as
I
an
yeah,
expert.
I but I had an issue thinking that because I had a boss that was an absolute dick. I
Yeah.
thought, well, managing people is telling them what to do.
Mhm.
So I had certain blocks there, and now, because I like helping people, I like, you know um the moment I looked at it as kind of not telling people what to do, but coaching them to do it better, always looking on this win-win outcome, where you tend to get a bit more from people if it doesn't seem like you're the person saying, right, do that, and that's not good enough. But if you're saying, right, you create a vision that's compelling for them, that they want to be a part of, you help them,
Yeah.
you train them, so the blocks for me were definitely at the beginning stages were about people. um People were like aliens to me to begin with, and you kind of figure out that some of the beliefs about people also aren't true, in the same way that people can have beliefs about money which aren't true. And now, whereas before, I would have beliefs about, people are lazy, people are this, people are rude.
Yeah.
um they're completely different now, and I think you do create a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you believe good things about people, you tend to get a bit more good things back.
Yeah,
That
that's
happens a
so
lot.
true. You receive what you believe. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. What are some misconceptions about money that people have?
Um, I think one of them is about whether or someone is good or bad, or greedy. I think a lot of it becomes this kind of what's known in maths and certain games as a zero sum game. That
Mhm.
in order to benefit, someone else has to lose. And that's true in certain games. Like if you think of some games we used to play when you were a child, if you win, someone else loses.
Yeah.
Now, the game of money isn't really like that. The game of money, in most cases, and it can be,
Yeah.
in currency investing, for example, it's a zero sum game.
Right.
In poker, it's a zero sum game. So if you have all the money, someone else doesn't have that money.
Yeah.
And if you have belief systems that you want to create value in the world and not exploit or take, then that's going to be a big kind of
Right.
misconception or block that gets in the way.
Yeah.
But I prefer to think about money as kind of, it can grow in a synergistic way if value is created on all sides. And at a most basic level, that can happen in all different areas. That can happen in a home, that can happen in a town, that can happen in a country, because the all the ingredients create something of way more value than the sum of its parts. So if you think about a house, for example, well, the bricks and the labor, when you add all that together, the house is worth more than all the bits that went in there. So you've just magicked up value from nothing.
Yeah.
That can happen in business. Facebook, for example, didn't exist, 15 years ago,
Yeah.
and someone had an idea, and then that idea is worth billions and billions, of dollars, pounds now, purely because at some level people find value from it. And I think that's the way of thinking about money that can get rid of a lot of blocks, is to think of, how can I create value for other people in a way that they're not currently receiving now.
Totally.
um, and that can happen in a real micro level, as being a individual entrepreneur, thinking, how can I use my skills, my beliefs, how I see the world to help other people. And you'll be surprised at how many people are willing to pay for that. Or it could be on a bigger scale, and you can say, right, how do I make my little dent in the universe and change the world in my own little way. And that can also create huge amounts of value. But there's three main ways that people can really become wealthy. And it comes down to assets. So things like property, for example. It's things like businesses, or a share of businesses,
The
like
stock
stocks.
market assets, is that in the same
Yeah,
category?
totally. I mean, the stock market, if you look at it as the stock market rather than commodities, what you're saying there is that you get a share of a business,
Yeah.
and that share of a business, if the business is doing well, is an appreciating asset. But sometimes businesses fail, so it's kind of knowing which is which.
Yeah.
which is sometimes more luck than judgment sometimes, but it's definitely an appreciating asset in terms of a business.
Mhm.
Property can be, if you buy a dilapidated property that's falling to bits,
Yeah.
well, that's not a good investment, but some properties get increase in value. So it's property, businesses, and the key barrier that can come up at that point is they say, well, you need money to make money, is a popular belief that people have,
Yeah.
because you either need the money to buy the house or set up the business or buy shares. And the way around that is intellectual property, which is also a form of property, but someone can come up with an idea, turn that idea into music or writing.
Hmm.
J.K. Rowling is one of the richest people in Britain. She didn't. What money do you need to start turning an idea into a book? You know, that's intellectual property.
Right.
And intellectual property, I think, is one of the most underestimated forms of value. You know, look at any of the very successful musicians. You know, they turned an idea, they fused that with different kind of things, and then they found an audience, and that could make them hugely financially successful.
Yeah.
And most musicians, they don't look like business people. They don't, all those
Yeah.
kind of associations that you would have.
Artists.
They,
Yeah.
yeah, they're coming from a different place, but that doesn't mean they can't be wealthy.
Exactly.
So intellectual property, for those people that are thinking, well, I don't really want to be a property investor, I don't really want to be a business person. Well,
Yeah.
I would suggest look at how you can take ideas, and create something which people like and are willing to pay for. And there's never been more platforms that exist to turn ideas into money. You can self-publish a book. You can create art. You can do lots of things. Lots of people have Etsy accounts, and they're coming
Mhm.
up with incredible things that people want, and people are willing to pay for them because it is unique and they can't buy it in shops.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of taking whatever someone's form of value, and how they can kind of make a positive impact. Well, that can be monetized,
Yeah.
and charge your worth. That's another one of the key blocks that gets in the way. People feel ashamed or embarrassed to ask for money for what they
Totally.
do. um
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny. I'm getting like all these like ideas right now. I'm like, ooh, I could like create like a clothing logo to go with my podcast and then to go with like coaching and then to go because you can create so many things that kind of intertwine together as well.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of people have the belief that like in order to make money or be successful, you need to only do like one thing and put all your energy into one project and not do many
Mm.
different things. So each to.
Yeah, and that's good for some people. For me, I'd get bored just doing one thing. So I like the challenge of having different plates spinning in different areas, because it keeps me on my toes. And it's not just about making money. It's kind of like, well, what does money give you?
Yeah,
Well, for me, it gives me a feeling of freedom, security, but equally, it's a way of judging what people want. And if you look at it as a game where instead of points it's money, well, the impact you have on the world can be, at some level, put a price on, because people are willing to pay for it.
yeah,
So it can be a little scorecard in the game of life.
yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. If people want to connect with you and ask you questions or work with you, how do they find you on social media?
Yeah, so Facebook, if you look for Adam Cox, there'll be a bold guy
Oh,
there, COX, that's right.
yeah.
Or adamcox.co.uk is my website, and then that links to my other websites and that kind of stuff. So that's probably the best place.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for the
And
invite.
what is the name of your podcast?
So I now have two podcasts since we last spoke.
Oh,
My Yeah, I'm greedy. I want to do more. Um, so there's a podcast where I interview people called Modern Mindset, and
okay.
the whole premise of that is that I want to pick the brains of people that think very differently to me, but that I can learn from, and my audience can learn from. So
Nice.
that's Modern Mindset with Adam Cox. And then I've launched one literally yesterday called The Hypnotist.
Okay.
And I've, over the last few years, I've worked with hundreds of different clients, and I love audio and tech, and I recorded all of those sessions on quite good microphones. And I thought, well, how
Nice.
can I create even more value? So all the podcast really is me giving a 3-4 minute explaining what genuine issue that client had.
Yeah.
And then you hear the actual hypnosis session that client experienced from me.
That's
And I charge about, £200-300 per session. So you're getting that same hypnosis that someone else paid a lot for free. So it's quite good from that perspective. And that's called The Hypnotist.
The Hypnotist. I'll get you to send me that link after the podcast. And I'll put those links in the show notes as well for anyone who wants to find the podcast. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey YouTube fam, if you like this video, make sure to hit the like button below. And if you think a friend, a family member, or just someone you know who could benefit from this podcast episode, please share this video with them. And if you've been enjoying the Elevate Your Soul podcast, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel for new episodes weekly.